Good morning, welcome to the webinar. My name's Matt Beecham. I work for BM Solutions, and today I'm going to be talking to you about our mortgage application system improvements, as well as some future improvements which we're applying to our mortgage portal around the customer profile form. That is the document which we require for underwriter referrals and especially portfolio landlords. I'm really happy to be here to talk to you as TMA members, and hopefully you'll find this session interesting. So over to the first slide. So firstly, what we've done, and these changes have already been implemented. They were implemented approximately 2 weeks ago. They're implemented off the back of your feedback. We found that the application system, which we changed back in 2016, so this is obviously the 1-minute mortgage application, with the tax changes and with all of the regulation which is going on in the buy-to-let world, we required different information, more information, and more importantly, we required accurate information for us to be able to produce an adequate and the correct level of borrowing for your landlord customers. With that in mind, 2 years ago, the changes were made, and we introduced them to try and make things simple for you guys and simple for ourselves. From the feedback which we've received, and alongside some of the file checks which we've undertaken over the certainly over the last 2 years, we found that the actual completion of the mortgage application system was not that accurate. A number of brokers got it wrong. The feedback was that the questions were misleading. The questions sometimes didn't make sense, and it was a strange way of asking some of the questions, I think was the general feedback. So we've made these changes, and like I said, they've been introduced a couple of weeks ago, but this session here is just to help you understand what the changes are, and hopefully it will help you when you're using BM Solutions the next time. So, like I said, we've made some changes. The changes have been to the income screens, so that's the employed, self-employed and retired. We've simplified them. The self-employed screens actually reflects how the tax calculations and tax year overview documents. These are the documents which you should obtain from your customers prior to any submission of any buy-to-let application. We've also done is split out the profit from UK land and property, which was a big issue for some of the file checks which we had. What we've also done is we've included some income and rent declarations. Really important, like I said, that we get the correct figures input into the system, and although we don't ask for proof of income on every application, certainly not as part of the application process. We do go back for file checks after completion, but it is really important to get the message out there that you should have the documents on file prior to any submission. What we've also done is introduce a new property schedule screen. The reason for this is previously we had a gross annual rental question, which 88% of file checks found out that the information submitted was incorrect. So rather than us asking you a question which it can be a little ambiguous, you can input it however you see fit. What we've now done is introduce a property schedule screen to capture the details of all existing buy-to-let properties, so we have the detail rather than just a one-off figure. We've also taken the opportunity to complete some portfolio landlord assessments within the application process. So as I'm sure you're aware, the portfolio landlord rules changed just over 12 months ago. So any landlord who's got 4 or more mortgage buy-to-let properties have to be treated differently. We're now putting some verification within our system, which I'll go through. Excuse me. As I've already said, keying a gross monthly rent now replaces gross annual rent. So this is all part of the property schedule screen. And again, this will become clear when I go through the screens. We'll work out the gross annual rent for you and your customers, rather than asking you to complete it and divvying it up between numbers of customers. And like I've said, our income rules. So we have a minimum income of 30,000 for portfolio landlords, and an LTV limit, and a rental cover ratio minimum requirement as well. So that, as I said, those have now been implemented into the system. Another issue which is obviously is poignant at this time of year. Ourselves, with the majority of lenders, will only work off of income which is no more than 18 months old. That changes on the 6th of October every year. We had no validation in our system, but now from earlier in November, we've put some validation in there, and I'll cover that off for you as well. So this is our new self-employed income screen. Whereas before we used to ask what was your total income or total self-employed income, and then which included profit from UK land and property, and then we'd ask you what your profit from UK land and property was. All we're going to do now, or what we have implemented, is we're just going to ask you to key what you see on the tax year overview, the old SA 302. Just tell us the information, just key what you see. That's all we're asking you to do now. So you key in latest year self-employed income, whether that is income from self-employment, whether that's salary and dividends from any limited companies which the customers, landlords obtain income from. So it's very straightforward. You just key what you see from the documentation. The latest year, as I've said, there will be validation in there. So if you do key in the latest year, which is outside of the 18-month requirement, the application will not let you move on. You will have to get a newer document to be able to complete the application, and the same for the previous year. And as I've said, profit from UK land and property, rather than expecting you to understand that we needed you to roll it all up into the self-employed income and then tell us about it later, just separate it. Our screens are designed to look more like a tax year overview rather than just questions on a screen. So you need the documentation prior to submission. Once you've got that documentation, it should make the keying process a lot more simple. And the last thing on this screen is, as I've said, we've got some verification tick boxes. It's really important that you have the evidence prior to submission, and you also retain the evidence. And as I've said, we do from time to time request documents as part of a application process, but we will also go back potentially after completion for file checks and randomly select files, and at that point we would also expect those pieces of documentation to be on file. So this is the employed screen. Not much has changed at the top half. Just tell us what the employed earnings are. And then as we go down, it's latest year self-employed income and latest year profit from UK land and property. We only need the 1 year. And of course, the reason why we want this is because we do use tax bandings for our calculation. So it's important that you correctly key the correct information from a tax year overview, which you should have on file. So retired screens, again, very simple. Tell us the retired income. Tell us any income from self-employment, and tell us any income from profit from UK land and property. if, as you can see, if the applicants have any buy-to-let properties, then profit for UK Land and Property must be keyed. Of course, if customers hold a buy-to-let property for a number of years, we would always expect some form of income to be declared to the revenue. Not every customer will have income, obviously down to timings, if the property was only bought in a short time ago, or carrying forward losses, but that's obviously down to yourselves and your own compliance to ensure that you've got the right documentation and you understand the picture of the customers. So just moving on to the property schedule screen, we've moved, as I've said previously, we moved away from asking what the gross annual rental income is. That income, that question confused a lot of brokers. A lot of brokers got that question wrong when we done file checks. So we're no longer asking that question, and we're just going to ask you to tell us about the customer's existing portfolio. So if a customer does have any buy-to-lets in the background, you need to tell us and you need to input this information, and I'll go through it very quickly now. So first of all, this is our portfolio landlord declaration. How many buy-to-lets do they have, including this property? Mortgaged buy-to-lets, including this property, whether it's in personal names, excuse me, or in a limited company or any legal entity. Obviously, 4 or more means that the customer's by PRA definition, a portfolio landlord. The current application property, which is the next box down, all that information is pulled through from the application, because this screen is one of the last screens in the application system. You would have already input that you were applying for a buy-to-let application, whether it's purchase or remo, the amount, valuation, and the rent and the estimated rent. The existing buy-to-let properties is the boxes which you would need to complete. So you need to complete whether it's in what format, whether it's limited company in personal names, the balance of the mortgage, the value of the properties, the rent, and how many people own the property, and whether applicant 1, applicant 2, applicant 3, or applicant 4 owns the property. So that's the information which you need to input. Just to break that down a little bit more, so you can see the rent there. We're asking gross monthly rent rather than asking you to tell us what the gross annual rent is, and then you can see the number of customers party to the property, and is applicant 1 party to the property. We do get a number of applications in where landlords may hold other properties with other parties which aren't party to the application which is currently going through. So it's important that you accurately record how this portfolio is set up and who owns each property. So that's the property schedule form, and what at the very bottom of the screen there is another declaration which is just to confirm that there is a true reflection of the customer's circumstances and that you've retained evidence. We do require that you should have on file copies of ASTs, or if the property is managed by a letting agent, we will accept statements from the letting agent confirming the properties and the rent which are being charged per property, and it's important that you hold that on file and retain that evidence. Excuse me. And the summary information, this is our portfolio landlord check. We have, as I've already stated, LTV requirements, minimum rental cover ratio requirements, and also we have maximum number of mortgage buy-to-let properties as well. So this system will work out our criteria against the application. So should you key an application which is outside criteria, the system won't allow you to submit. It will also run the 30k minimum income rule alongside this as well to stop you from moving forward, so that we don't receive any applications which sit outside our criteria, and you're notified prior to submission of the full application. So, like I said, we've listened to your feedback. These are the changes which we've made. Hopefully you'll find it a lot easier to use, a lot simpler. I think the key message to take from this system is key what you see. and for able for you to key what you see, it's important that you have the documentation prior to submission. So the second change, this hasn't been implemented just yet. The plans are for this to be fully rolled out by the end of the year. And it works alongside our mortgage portal. I'm sure most of you have used our mortgage portal. Previously was the Intralinks system. Currently we ask you to complete a customer profile form, which is a PDF documentation. You then upload that to us. You can upload it in any format really, so you can handwritten, etc. There's no validation in there. We've automated that process, and I'll go through that now. What you'll be able to do is import a PDF customer profile form, so you still need to complete the customer profile form. That doesn't change. But what this does, it actually uploads and imports the information from the form into the system. So we're able to run some validation for you, so you can't submit a customer profile form which has inconsistencies in there, missing information, or any mistakes which you accidentally or yourselves or your landlord customers may have done. Or alternatively, you can key the customer profile form directly onto the system, and I'll go through that with it in a second. Well, it does mean that we will not accept handwritten customer profile forms. We don't get that many, but the ones which we do are largely unreadable. It just causes massive delays, so it's not something which you want. It's not something which we want. As I've said, there's validation on the rental cover ratio and LTV, and also on property addresses as well. So if any mistakes were made on postcodes or just any of the address format, the validation is run for you prior to submission, so that when we receive the customer profile form, everything is accurate, and we can actually underwrite the application a hell of a lot quicker. It is totally functional with tablets and mobiles and laptops, as you'd expect. We've also improved the case tracking, so that you know that A, it's been submitted, B, that the underwriters got hold of it, and C, that actually we're happy with the application. What we'll also be able to do is run automated valuation models straight away after you've submitted the application. This will save a lot of time internally for us, which in turn will mean that you'll get a decision a lot quicker. Obviously, us having accurate information and information which is imported into our system enables us to be able to do that. You're still carrying out the same function, completing a customer profile form, but what it does mean is that we'll be able to react to that information and use that information a lot quicker. So I'd imagine most of you have used the mortgage portal before. This is your standard login. This is the welcome page which you would see. You click on new application. You'd put in the application number, so you've obviously done the application already. You've submitted it via the 1 Minute Mortgage. It's asked for your customer profile form. You put in your application number, you write in the application number, you type in the customer's names, create the application, and there you can see at the top is where the customer profile form button is, if you need to submit a customer profile form. Master application number, so if you're submitting more than one application, for the same customers, we'll only need you to submit one customer profile form per customer. So what you're able to do is just link in the master application number. So if this was the second or the third application, you just put in the previous master application number. Excuse me. So that's showing how to do that. Once you've done that, what you're able to then do is, once you clicked on customer profile form at the top, get this box. What you can then do is drag and drop the PDF, completed PDF document into that box, or alternatively you can download the file as well. Once you've done that, you click on so if you click cancel first of all, what this will do will enable you to key in directly into the customer profile form, or next, number 2, this is where you can get a copy of the PDF, and next we'll drag, once you've got the customer profile form PDF document dragged into the box, you press next. The form will be imported into the system. It will obviously advise you once that form's been inputted into the system. So all of the information which you've put into the customer profile form PDF, which you've typed in, will then be transposed into the system, and it will then show on your screen. On your screen, it will show exactly all the details. It will have a summary of the portfolio. It will tell you the LTVs, the rental cover ratios, and all of the costs. What it will also do is highlight in red any missing information. So if there is any information which needs to be completed, you can then go into each of the lines and each of the properties and amend them should you need to, or complete any missing information. What you also this will always also do is it will also highlight any properties which we can't find via a postcode search. What you're then able to do is, so if you've put in the wrong postcode, for example, you can then put in the correct information, look up the property, and actually search for the property itself, and then you'll have the obviously select address option. Once you've done that, you can then validate. So you validate the screen again. So if you've put in some more information, you press validate, it checks the validation, it ensures that the form is ready for submission. You can then submit after completing the declaration. It will then be submitted. The automated valuation models, so the AVMs, will then be completed. It will be then sat for an underwriter to be reviewed. Once the underwriter has reviewed the documentation, he will then get in touch with you either phone call or via our secure messaging system, and hopefully this application will be successful and it will then move on to underwriting completed. So just a few common mistakes around the customer profile form. There's a big one for us, which is declared mortgages don't match our credit bureau data. Really important that you understand the client's full picture, you understand how many mortgages they have, but also the value of these mortgages. Really important that you get some accurate figures. It doesn't have to be a pound accurate, but it does need to bear some resemblance to the credit bureau. I would suggest that any portfolio landlord applications, you do a credit bureau search, just so you've got the accurate information. I'm not going to read through all of these. I will go down to the savings field left blank. It's surprising how many customer profile forms we get at this moment which have no savings documented on the application form. As part of the PRA changes for portfolio landlords now have bigger hurdles to jump over when it comes to portfolio landlord lending. Any further information that you can add, any supporting information you can add to any application is really important, and it's really worthwhile you just spending the time asking that question and documenting it. If a customer has some savings in the background, really important that it goes alongside the support of the application. The systems, so the application system and this mortgage portal system, the changes which we've got are very intuitive. You should be able to work it out as you go through. It shouldn't be too difficult. It will point out where you've gone wrong. But if you do need any information, there's lots of information. There's lots of information on the BM Solutions website. We've got 22 face-to-face BDMs who are there at your beck and call, and 10 telephone based BDMs, which so every broker has 2 points of contact. So if you do have any questions, any queries, they are the experts on the system, so you can give them a call. And that's it for me. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions if required.